Hello everyone. My name is Majesty. I am an Atlanta-based real estate developer with $13 million in assets under management and another $50 million in the pipeline. I build and rehab apartment buildings, so stick around for some investment tips. I'm doing a 100 question series of the most common questions that I get from people regarding development and investing. And today's question is, what is the process for securing a public-private partnership? So the process for securing a public-private partnership, which is basically when the government and the private sector join forces to complete some task or project or service. So this involves the government at different levels. It could be the county, city, state, federal. It can even become international at bigger levels. But essentially, they have these funding opportunities, and that's probably the main thing to understand. Is that don't get me wrong, with the right project or product or service or whatever, you can approach them, or you can approach stakeholders or key people with projects if you have those types of relationships. But more than likely, even if you come to them that way, they're going to redirect you to some funding opportunity that exists. And a lot of that has to do with not showing any favoritism. So there's funding opportunities that they promote, that they market to the public. One of these is called a RFP, or request for proposals, and this is essentially when the government is looking for people to respond to, I guess, kind of a concept that they have in mind. For example, maybe they have a piece of land that they're looking to develop, and they just want to get proposals from people in the development space on what can we do with this land, what would you suggest, put a concept together, and if we like it, we potentially can partner. Another one is a NOFO, which stands for Notice of Funding Opportunity. And this basically just identifies that there's available funding, public funding, for a specific type of project. So obviously you're going to need to identify what type of project, like the scope that you're going to be doing. Like, are you going to be doing, real estate development? Are you going to be doing infrastructure work, building bridges, or, things like that? Like, are you going to be providing some type of service? Maybe there's a product that, like, for example, during COVID, people, obviously the government needed a lot of masks, so you could have been a provider for masks. So the NOFO is when they've already kind of identified what they want to do, and the funding's already available, and they're more so trying to match the funding with people that can follow through on what it is that they need done. Another one, which sounds almost exactly alike, is NOFA, which is Notice of Funding Availability. And what this basically means is that you can be on the lookout for government announcements regarding the availability of funding for specific projects. So either way, not to get lost in the sauce of all the acronyms, but the overall point is that they put out these requests for information, for proposals. Sometimes it's just for your credentials. Like, they just want to see who's credentialed and build a list of credentialed people to work with for future opportunities, or something that they have in mind that they're maybe not ready to discuss at length right now. So you have to keep an eye out for these funding opportunities and match them to maybe the projects that you have in mind. So that's how we do it. We already maybe own a piece of land and already have a project in mind, and we see these opportunities come available where maybe they're giving grants or some type of funding, or maybe the technical assistance. Sometimes they just give you help in the form of, I call it like consulting a laborer or what have you. Like, they may help in that way. But either way, that's what you're looking for. That's typically where a lot of public-private partnerships begin. Like I said, you can come to them with a project, especially if it's something in the city that they're trying to solve that you already know they're trying to solve. But if they're already trying to solve it, most likely there's a budget allocated for it, and that's where these funding opportunities are coming from. And they go, like I said, all the way from the city level all the way up to the federal level. So there's a lot of different areas that you can look for these opportunities. Now, with that said, let's just assume that you found an opportunity that fits the scope of whatever it is that you do. Let's just say infrastructure. We're going to do some bridge repair, bridge building, things like that. So once you identify the opportunity, at that point you have to do a feasibility study, and within those requests for information and proposal and all of that, they'll provide a certain amount of documentation on the project that they have in mind. So let's just say that there's a bridge, a specific bridge. It's on I-75 in Atlanta. It needs to be fixed. They'll give you the paperwork on it, like maybe the drawings and maybe some ideas of engineering reports or something like that, that you can use to analyze and then put together a feasibility study to see if it even makes sense to do the project with them, in that sense. So and you can structure it in different ways as far as like ownership. Maybe you don't get to have ownership, maybe you only get to have a fee, but maybe there is some ownership allowed in the situation. So every funding opportunity is a little different, but basically you just want to be able to do a feasibility study on the project that you have in mind or whatever you're working on, to make sure that it makes sense, because you're going to need to present this to all the stakeholders, including the public partner that you'll be working with. So that next you want to outline the plan. You basically want to put together the project details, the timelines, the roles you have in mind, basically everything that it will take to get that project across the finish line. You also want to highlight the benefits of it, of why it's a win-win situation and it's not just only a benefit for you. So that's probably the next step. And then after that, you want to identify sources of funding. Like, how are you going to fund the project? A lot of these public funding opportunities, they provide a lot of capital, but sometimes they require you to bring some capital as well. A lot of HUD, which is the Housing and Urban Development Department, they deal with all of the housing stuff. A lot of their offerings as far as funding come with a match requirement, meaning you have to bring a certain percentage of the amount. So let's just say it's a $1 million project, and they have a 25% match. Now they'll bring 75% of the million, which is considerable, $750,000 of the million to the table, but they expect you to be able to attract the other 25% through the partnership. They want you to bring something to the table as well, and they want you to meet them. It's not exactly the middle, but that may be how it looks for you based on what your resources are, or what you have access to. So that's something to consider. So you want to identify your funding sources to make sure that you're able to properly capitalize the project all the way through. You want to respond to these funding opportunities. You want to submit your proposal with all this information. You've done your feasibility, you've analyzed it, you found some sources of funding, had some preliminary conversations, and all of that. And so you submit your proposal, and then from there they'll let you know whether they like your proposal or not. If they do, they'll communicate with you, and that's kind of where the negotiation and everything like that kind of starts. They'll typically draft the agreements, everything like that. They'll want you to obtain all the approvals usually, as far as permits and everything like that. And maybe that's just because they need a certain arm's length, kind of situation there. But yeah, that's kind of where that starts. And then you formalize that agreement after you kind of get through that negotiation phase, finalize the roles, sign your agreements. And that's typically also where they'll make a public announcement. And a lot of that is because they have to, as a public, organization, they have to let everybody know what it is that they're doing. who they're doing it with. So you'll see, usually it's done like in the paper or something like it's old school, but they'll put something out in the paper saying, hey, we're giving $750,000 towards this bridge repair or creation in this specific area, and we're partnering with, you know, YouTube construction. So that's kind of, you know, how it works. I mean, it's government contracting at its best. Like I say, they usually control the process. After that point, it's really just about, you know, executing the project, like launching and then executing it, managing it over time, and then handing it over if that's what the agreement is, or what have you. But, you know, just updating everybody, keeping them involved. You know, but that's essentially kind of the process, you know, in securing, you know, a public-private partnership, like the actual negotiation process. So I appreciate you guys checking out this video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the engagement. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.